Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to wrap up today with a special selection, which is where one of you tell me exactly what it is I need to check out. Today's comes at us from Childra, a legion of beasts and worms. That's what we're going to dive into today. We have a YouTube video with this. The YouTube video is age restricted. I don't know what's in it, but I'm going to assume probably something along the lines of blood, violence. I don't know. It's metal. That's usually what gets the age restriction in those music videos. So, yeah, let's dive into this. See what's going on with the Legion. A really big start, but bringing the energy down quite a bit. Interesting offbeat accent focus on the guitars, where the drums are giving us downbeat accent. That muted run was nice. At least this part is identical to the first verse. Yeah, so we have a verse, pre-chorus, chorus idea here. And the clean section for the chorus. Okay. This is a catchy moment. Really nice drum fill into this. Oh, yeah. So expanding the pre-chorus idea into its own moment. Just a dash of Phrygian in there in the harmony. I think even the chords underneath this have changed. The snare and bass drum were so fast, so tight, so precise. What kind of music is this? We're going to get into discussion, of course, of what this song is doing and what kind of themes it's exploring and how it's portraying those ideas through the music. But the first thing I want to talk about real quick is genre, because this is obviously death metal right here. There's portions that I think even might veer a little bit into the technical death metal realm, but regardless, it is death metal. I think at its heart, some of those riffs, the drum work, absolutely. Extreme metal, not necessarily in the thrash realm, definitely not doom, definitely not black metal. It's got to be death metal. That's kind of how I work it. All the other extreme metals have a sound. Death metal doesn't, to me. I haven't gotten to the point where I can pick out why it's death metal. It's just process of elimination for me. This is death metal though. But it's also kind of core coded too. It's punky. There's a lot of atmospheric elements in here. Yes, we have strong riff work, but not always. The clean vocals, the higher pitched harshes, those also feel very post-hardcore to me. And I was thinking, what is post-hardcore death metal? Well, that must be deathcore, right? But the deathcore I've been exposed to is nothing like this. This is kind of what I wish deathcore was. But if it's not, then what is this? That's where I'm at. I don't know if I would actively seek out more of this specifically, but I do like the direction this is heading. The metal parts are a little too much for me at times, and I'm not a big fan of the vocal style or the verse style growling. But I do like the mix of aggression with hooks, with whatever that portion is. I don't know if it's the chords, I don't know if it's playing chords, I don't know if it's the specific chords. Something about this feels very post-hardcore to me. And I think that's a very cool combination, and it kind of makes it a good bridge song. Something that would take me from my catchy hooks and whatever atmospheric post-hardcore elements I'm hearing in here and getting me halfway into this more traditional death metal, which I do think the verse and of course the bridge with all the guitar solos, those are definitely death metal moments. I kind of enjoyed it from that angle. So, let me know about genre and this, and maybe other bands that are like this, but maybe a little bit less of the metal, or maybe alternatively, just a little bit less of the extremity. This song can get very heavy, very fast, very intense at places. All right, on to what the song is doing, though. This is an aggressive track. Pretty much from start to finish, the chorus lightens up a little bit, the bridge lightens up a little bit. For the most part, it is intense, it is heavy, it is almost brooding at times if it weren't so fast. I do think that this feels more of like someone running away from problems, where they do have this weight on their shoulders, something that weighs them down, but instead of engaging with it and being brought down, or engaging with it and defeating it, they're running from it. There's so much momentum and directionality to this track, but it doesn't feel like it is free at all. So we have this, again, kind of a brooding element, even if it isn't the typical heavyweight doom metal style kind of brooding. It is intense. The riffs in here come fast and furiously. And the drum work is intense all the way through. The drummer does let up a couple of times, but for the most part, we're looking at incredibly loud accents. The drummer is just beating the crap out of this drum kit. But it's also fast. We get those 16th note bass kicks. We get the blast beats in here. There's a lot of sound coming out of the drum kit at any given moment. And of course, the vocals, they have their cleans, they have their possibly fry screams, but a lot of this track is growls. It's this heavy weight. It's this deep rumble underneath. I did appreciate the clarity of that. I don't know how much of it was enunciation and how much of it was production, carving out a space for the vocals to sit, especially given how low a lot of the instrumentation is too. There's a lot of room for the vocals to get muddied up there, and they don't. I'm not going to say that I could write out all the lyrics by ear on this, but there are some passages I picked out words, phrases, and even sentences. I'm always going to shout out clear production, especially in metal like this. But it is a gnarly, intense track that is just constantly filled with face-melting speed, aggression, and weight. And I do think that most of this track, to me, feels like what I had mentioned, trying to run away from something that weighs you down, which I do think the song kind of starts off in an interesting way from that perspective. We get a really big hit. The guitars hold the note out, it fades, and then we have moments of calm. I was going to say pensiveness, but I don't think that's accurate. I think it's clarity, it's emptiness more so than dedicated thought. It's calm. Granted, calm before calamity, but it's still calm here in this brief moment. From here, the song ramps up almost immediately and doesn't let go. It really makes me wonder about this moment. What is it supposed to represent? We have the vocals here incredibly low, spoken word, not growled. This is traditional speech, but really low stuff. Just kind of have a nice graveliness to it too. Much lower than I can go, that's for sure. But I think you get the picture. You heard it with me, hopefully, during the reaction as well. It's low, it's gravelly, it is foreboding. It does not feel like there's positivity here, which is interesting because it's during a calming moment of the track. So right from the start, we have not necessarily a jump scare, but a big moment of intensity, followed by calm, almost an emptiness that is that has an over narration, making us feel unease. Something terrible is about to happen, and then the song kicks it into overdrive, somehow shifting directly into top gear and never backing off. How do I interpret all of this? What do I make of the rest of the track? I really wish something changed drastically on the emotional front here. Even as we get to the chorus, which has the clean vocals, it has the hook, it doesn't feel better. The guitar work is still heavy and overbearing. The drum work is still intense. It may be sonically easier to listen to, but emotionally, it continues on this feeling of pain, of fear, of weight, of being pulled down. I do appreciate the little bit of lightness here, though. I like the clean vocals. I like the layered cleans with the growls. That sounds great. The harsh vocals that come in the, I don't know if it's the first part of the bridge or the post chorus. After the second chorus, that section was pretty cool. But it does provide, at least to my ears, a little bit of an attempt at levity, even if the instrumentation isn't keen on following suit. It gives us division, where most of this track is singular in focus. Here we have a split. Maybe it's wants versus needs. Maybe it's dreams versus reality, what you want things to be and how they really are instead. There is a bit of a schism in these moments, a brief pause for something more palatable. I don't even know if I can call it palatability. It is the vocals cleanup. That's really it. It brings a little bit of melody to a track that doesn't really care too much about melody. We have some melodic riffs, but that's about it. And they're so fast moving that they are still more aggressive than melodious. There is one part of this track I really love. I pointed it out every time. It's the pre-chorus, it's the post-chorus or the first part of the bridge. It's the palm muted, really sharp, quick, higher pitched guitar riffs. Those sound great, especially as so much of this track is about this wall of sound. It's about the guitar riffs, the notes within them kind of bleeding together, or in some places just hitting the chords and allowing them to reverberate out and create these big walls. And then you have these really tight, these really tight attacks, and there you could almost see the space between them. There's not a lot of it, but when you've only seen walls, having a fence with little breaks in between it allows you some sort of visual of what's on the other side. It is a huge change compared to solid brick. It has an entirely different feel to it, and sort of like how the clean vocals give some aspect of levity to it, so does this. It is a brief moment and the tiniest accommodation away from solid sound. It's not much, but in these dry areas, I'll take the little drop of water. And that's what they feel like. But they're also just ear candy. The production on them sounds great. It's the contrast as well, moving from lower stuff to higher stuff, wider stuff to thinner stuff, full space versus having elements between notes. It's a great way to change things up a little bit. In a similar vein as having the clean vocals come in at the chorus. That's a subtle change, one we don't stick with for too long, takes up a small part of the track, but is welcome nonetheless. On the concept of melody that we kind of hear here in this guitar riff and the clean vocals, we do have the solos, and I enjoyed the solos. There's a nice display of technical prowess. There's also a nice display of melodic storytelling. I don't feel like any of them lean too hard on showmanship, but they certainly get to shred a little bit. As far as I hear, there's 3 distinct solos. They all have a little bit of their own flair. But I think a lot of this comes down to harmonic shifts between them rather than it being 3 distinct solos. Y'all will have to let me know. I wasn't paying attention to the music video. I assume that they might have been showing different guitarists there, I don't really feel like I hear too much of a difference in melody writing. So I do think it might just be one long solo, but what's underneath changes. The first part is fairly traditional metal. We move into something a bit more Phrygian, which gives a little bit more intensity to it. And then at the end, we remove that intensity for a bit of sorrow, something heavier and weightier about the final portion of it. All of this coming from the harmony. I feel like the melody itself is rather consistent. It moves between longer held out notes that feel like longing and then faster driven parts, which once again feel like trying to get away from something. And to me, it continues to exemplify this story of, running from your past, running from a big action, maybe having regret for something and trying to evade it mentally. Maybe it's not a physical running away. Maybe you're not trying to get away from a place, but trying to get away from a mindset or something within you, a personality trait. I hear a lot of that in the solo, but I do think it's interesting to hear the emotional story going on in the solo as well. And a lot of that comes from the chord changes, which I thought was interesting because, music has that. Chord changes under melodies, that's normal. But when it comes to guitar solos, particularly in metal, maybe even more particularly in death metal, I don't hear too much of that. You kind of have your foundation and maybe the riff might change, but the harmony isn't going to. It gives a static canvas for the solo performer to paint on without having to worry about variation or anything of that. It keeps it static. It keeps it reliable. You know exactly how it is. You build your solo off of that. Having three modal changes, or I guess two modal changes in the solo is a little different. You don't hear that too often, and I really appreciate it. I guess that's going to wrap this up then. I don't have much else to add to this. An enjoyable track at moments for me, a masterclass display of wild drumming and fantastic guitar work on the bass and the electric, and versatility within the vocalist as well. Two harshes and a clean style in here. So yeah, very cool track. A little too aggressive for me, but I do enjoy what they're trying to throw down. Let me check out some lyrics for this. So this song is about trying to find a place for escape or maybe for meditation, just to get away from, as it says, far from the whispers of bustling streets, and talks about landscapes that once held a permanent place. It talks about a place that's just far away from everything else, where you can feel the breeze and look up and see the trees, where there's a river that runs and cleanses me. It says, this is where my spirit longs to be, a place where I can rest my bones. It calls this place a whispering wood, where emptiness stirs and the eyes of the sun dare not linger. It seems to be a track about escaping the daily city life and all of the noise and sound and light pollution that goes on in there, and finding a place more serene and natural to spiritually, or maybe even just emotionally and mentally recharge. It talks about being ragged and weary, awake but trembling. It mimics the frailty escaping from these whimpering lungs. Just talking about being worn out by everyday life and needing that recharge, needing that meditation, that pensiveness. Searching for a place where they can rest and just be without everything pulling at them, running them ragged. Now, it does present an element that gets a little more visceral. It does say that this is a place where I can sleep in the soil forevermore. It talks about the skin being stripped from the vessels, clawing and crying out for the dawn that encroaches, bringing with it the pain of facing another day. This pain is never ending. I kind of read all this together the first time through and thought that this was a spirit coming back to the place they had died, or possibly somebody on their deathbed searching for a place to rest. Maybe they have a fatal wound and they're trying to find a place that isn't the city that they hate, and finding something that's more peaceful for their afterlife in essence. But I think it's generally just about how every fiber of their being hates the day-to-day grind, whatever that happens to be, and they just wish to have something more calm, more mentally freeing, more emotionally stable, something more pensive, just like chilling in the woods. And that every day of city life brings them this pain, this yearning for calm. I can kind of get behind that. It's a little bit of an over-exaggeration for me personally. I'm not much of a woodsy person, but I do understand the idea of having a space to yourself where it's just you and there's no distractions, no notifications, no one needing your help, and you can just mentally be and recharge your body. Yeah, I can definitely get behind that. And I think that does kind of fit what I was going with in the song when I was talking about how the music feels like it's in search of something. I had mentioned rushing towards something, or maybe more specifically, running away from something. And I think that concept is in here. I think my read on it was slightly off from what the lyrics were going for, but they're definitely running in parallel together. I always love it when art tells the story musically and lyrically, and it comes together to form a nice cohesive whole. These are my thoughts, though, on Allegiance of Beasts and Worms. Let me know what you thought of this, if there's anything that stood out to you, anything that you'd like to add on to what I said or correct me on. Do you have your own take, perspective, or opinion on this? Please put all of that and anything else you'd like to add into the comment section below. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. Takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three. That wraps it up for today. I'll be back tomorrow, though, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 p.m. UTC as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch whenever you choose to watch stuff. I don't know why I fumbled that. See you later.